The story opens in Damascus, where a photographer named Damien Thorne is working with his friend Amani Gulkar on his 30th birthday. The two are capturing snapshots of local life, immersed in the rich, everyday scenes around them. Suddenly, the peaceful atmosphere shatters as a squad of soldiers storms the area, searching for suspected terrorists believed to be hiding among the residents. Amid the chaos, Damien and Amani get caught up in the confusion, and unexpectedly run into Kelly Baptiste, Damien's ex-girlfriend, who is working there as a journalist. As people scatter in panic, Kelly records the violence on her camera while Damien snaps photos of the chaos unfolding around him. But when he notices wounded and helpless people lying on the ground, his focus shifts, rushing over to help an elderly woman. He reaches her side only for her to suddenly grab him and look at him with a strange intensity. In a strained voice, she calls out his name, confesses her love for him, and softly murmurs that everything is happening for his sake. As she speaks, her eyes roll back, sparking flashbacks of Damien's childhood. In the next moment, a stone hits her, and she disappears. As the residents are being relocated, Damien desperately searches for the old woman but cannot find her. He calls Kelly, who is arranging a ride with a local to find out where the residents are being moved. Damien tries to join her, but he and Amani are quickly apprehended by the authorities and deported to New York. There, he discovers that he has been banned from re-entering the country. Determined to track down the woman, he calls Kelly, who is still in Damascus, asking if she can help him locate her. He also visits a friend named Cray, hoping he can use his influence to help him get back into the country. As Damien leaves Cray's office, a woman named Anne Rutledge approaches him. He does not recognize her, but she seems to know a lot about him. When he asks, Anne says they last met at his father's funeral, and mentions she works in a protection business, but does not give much detail about her role. A few days later, Kelly returns to New York and calls Damien, asking him to meet. When they meet, Kelly reveals that the old woman in Syria spoke to Damien in Latin, and that the same words were spoken when Jesus was baptized at the age of 30. Damien remembers that it was also his 30th birthday when he encountered the woman. Kelly then explains some biblical connections, suggesting that the incident may be directly tied to Damien. As they talk, Damien shares that he has been having vivid memories of his childhood. He recalls a family party where a woman suddenly called out to him, saying she loved him and that everything was meant for him. Damien admits to Kelly that these disturbing memories have haunted him for years, which is why he ended their relationship. He never wanted her involved in this strange part of his life. As they continue talking, Kelly's sister, Simone, enters, causing them to wrap up the conversation quickly. Later, Damien and Amani search through photos of the old woman, though Amani does not understand why Damien is so determined to find her. Around the same time, Kelly arrives with some articles related to Damien's 5th birthday. She points out a connection between the death of a journalist and Damien's father, suggesting there might be a link. Kelly then introduces Carl Bugenhagen, a biblical scholar who conducted an excavation at the same location where Damien's father was when the journalist died. She takes Damien to meet Renus, a former student of Bugenhagen, who was working with him during that incident and might have valuable information. They arrive at Professor Renus's residence, where he explains that although Damien's father had a political background, he sought out Professor Bugenhagen to learn about the beast, the false messiah, mentioned in the Book of Revelation, a subject in which Bugenhagen was an expert. Renus describes the beast and how it was ultimately defeated by the returning Christ. Despite listening closely, Damien struggles to understand how any of this relates to his father. Professor Renus then asks Damien if he is familiar with the number 666, but Damien says he is not. Frustrated by the lack of clear answers, Damien abruptly ends the conversation and leaves. As he is heading to the car, Professor Renus follows him, giving him a string of crystals and urging him to embrace Christ as his savior. Just after Damien and Amani drive away, a group of dogs suddenly attacks Professor Renus and is killed. Back at Damien's workplace, he and Kelly are trying to piece everything together. Suddenly, Kelly receives a call informing her of Professor Renus's death. Damien immediately begins to feel that the professor's death might be because of his involvement, and urgently tells Kelly to leave him for her own safety. Despite wanting to stay and support him, Kelly is forced to go as Damien angrily insists she leave. In tears, she walks away. As Kelly tries to start her car, she faces trouble. While struggling to fix it, a sudden surge of thick mud starts to pull her in. Just then, Damien rushes over to help. But before he can pull her out, something from beneath the mud grabs hold of her and drags her into the muddy pit. Elsewhere, a priest, who is aware of Damien's existence, reveals that he possesses one of the remaining daggers of Megiddo, a weapon needed to kill him. The priest expresses regret, saying that they have already delayed too long in carrying out Damien's death. Meanwhile, Damien visits a church and, overcome with emotion, breaks down crying, pleading with God for answers. In frustration, he clutches the crucifix, and the moment he touches it, the cross begins to crumble. This contact triggers a flood of memories of his father attempting to kill him in a church. Disturbed, Damien rushes outside, where he unexpectedly encounters the old woman he has been searching for. As he approaches her, she grabs him and pulls out a chunk of his hair. Later, back at home, Damien notices the same woman appearing in the background of various photos he has taken over the years in different places around the world. Alarmed, he checks the spot on his scalp where she pulled his hair and discovers the 666 mark on the scalp. The scene then shifts to Chile, where a group of people gather in prayer around a young boy who is tied up in a large pit. A woman successfully performs an exorcism on the possessed boy. Shortly after, the head priest approaches her, informing her that she is urgently needed in Rome, and insists that she leave immediately. Back with Damien, he is reading the Bible when Amani arrives to take him to Kelly's funeral. Damien hesitates, not wanting to face her family and friends' questions about her death. Amani reassures him, reminding him that her death was not his fault, and encourages him to go. At the church, the priest gives the last dagger of Megiddo to a man, instructing him to kill Damien. However, as they talk about the plan, the priest unexpectedly dies, causing the man to panic and quickly flee the church. Damien arrives at Kelly's funeral with Amani. As they approach the entrance, Damien notices a man, unaware he has been sent to kill him, making him cautious. Inside, Simone delivers a tribute speech for Kelly, and Damien begins to feel uneasy, haunted by unsettling visions. Christ statues and paintings disturb him. Anne, present at the funeral, watches his discomfort with interest. Suddenly, a glass shatters, and Damien rushes outside. Anne approaches him, revealing she knows many people, including his parents. Their conversation is cut short as others exit, and Damien is distracted by his friends. When he looks back, Anne is gone. After the service, Damien and his friends go to Simone's to pay their respects. Ceci, Damien's boss, gives him a check for $55,000 from his photos, mentioning Anne brought them. Damien asks if there are new assignments, but Ceci suggests he take a break. He steps outside to call Anne. At first, the person on the line denies knowing her, but when Damien mentions his name, she says she will pass his message to Anne. Meanwhile, Amani learns from Ceci that they have both been fired. After the call, Damien returns and begins talking to a priest, who starts preaching about God's existence, even as Damien hints at his own lack of faith. The priest insists that everything happens according to God's plan, but Damien does not buy his talks. Frustrated, he raises his voice and asks the priest that if God existed, why would he allow someone who is fighting against all the world's suffering to be killed? His outburst draws everyone's attention, and realizing this, Damien quickly apologizes and leaves the gathering. After that, Damien is out on the streets, taking pictures of people as usual. Meanwhile, the man from the church is secretly watching him, waiting for the right moment to strike. Just as the man moves closer, an old man approaches Damien, warning him that darkness is coming. At the same time, the man spying on Damien is startled when he sees a girl with one of her eyes sewn shut. Damien continues photographing the crowd as the day grows darker. He spots the same old man again, watching him from a distance, repeating that the darkness is near. Turning around, Damien sees the girl with the sewn eye. She writes 666 on the fogged-up window of a nearby building. He tries to approach her, but the assassin steps out from the shadows and attempts to attack him. They fight for a while, moving through the streets. In the chaos, a passing car accidentally hits the assassin, killing him, and the last dagger falls in the sewer. Conversely, Amani tries to comfort Simone after the gathering. He flirts with her a bit and offers his number, suggesting she could call him if she needs someone to talk to. Simone agrees, and as she looks for a pen and paper, she notices Kelly's backpack. Feeling emotional, Simone decides to open it. Sitting together, they go through Kelly's bag and find her notebook. Inside, Simone and Amani discover notes about Damien, Megiddo, the apocalypse, and other related topics. They realize from Kelly's writings that she believed Damien might be the Antichrist. They also discover a video from Syria where Damien first encountered the old woman. However, they struggle to make sense of her notes and the events in the video. At the accident scene, Damien is questioned by Detective James Shea. Damien explains that the man had been following him since Kelly's funeral. James expresses sympathy for Damien, noting that he seems to have witnessed several accidents in just a week. As they talk, Anne arrives and the scene is Damien's legal counsel, and takes him away from the scene. As they leave, the detectives discover that the assassin had religious tattoos that symbolize a cult organization, though it appears he is no longer a part of it. Anne and Damien head to his apartment, where she asks about the dagger he was attacked with. Damien explains that he did not have time to notice the details. He then asks if she knew the accident was going to happen, to which Anne replies that she has been watching over him. As Damien continues to shower Anne with questions, she reveals that she was at Kelly's funeral for him, not because she knew Kelly, and drops another bombshell, saying that Damien is adopted. She explains that his birth mother died after giving birth to him, and that same night, Catherine, his adoptive mother's child, also died. The priest convinced his father to adopt Damien in place of their deceased child, without Catherine ever knowing. Anne then says she can answer all his questions and urges him to follow her. At Anne's house, she shows Damien the same dagger that the assassin used to try and kill him. Seeing the dagger triggers a flashback to his childhood, reminding him of the time his father tried to kill him. Anne then takes Damien to a hidden underground room, where she reveals some of his old belongings, including a red tricycle. The room appears entirely dedicated to Damien, filled with his photographs and personal belongings arranged throughout. As Damien looks at these items, more memories from his childhood resurface. Anne looks at him and says, "Welcome home." Looking at the tricycle, Damien calls it a murder weapon, remembering how, while riding it, he accidentally caused his mother to fall from the balcony, leading to her death. Anne, however, insists it was not his fault. Together, they reflect on various memories. Anne explains that although she was not there from the beginning, she has been with him for a long time, and even claims to have raised him. Damien disagrees, insisting that he raised himself. Anne explains that she was sent by a group dedicated to protecting him, while others opposed his existence. When Damien asks what she wants from him, Anne simply says that being with him is enough for her. As they leave the room, Anne asks about Damascus, but Damien dismisses the question, saying nothing happened there. Anne tells him they can meet again, though he replies they will not. After he leaves, Anne's daughter enters, asking how Damien reacted. Anne explains that while he is not ready yet, he will return because he has nowhere else to go. Her daughter shares that his attacker was a theology student named Herman, and wonders how he came to possess the dagger, which remains a mystery. The next day, Simone visits a priest at the church, seeking guidance on Kelly's notes about the Book of Revelation. The priest dismisses her concerns, saying she is looking for answers that are never there. Frustrated, she leaves and walks down the hall, where she notices a statue of the Virgin Mary seemingly bleeding. Shocked, she calls the priest to show him, but when he arrives, the statue has stopped bleeding, leaving Simone confused. At work, Damien tries to locate his birth records, but discovers the hospital he was born in has burned down, leaving no trace. Imani arrives, and Damien shares his encounter with Anne, and the belongings he found in her home. Imani then tells him that he and Simone went through Kelly's things and found some unsettling information, though Damien has no clear answers, as he is equally confused. During their conversation, Imani reveals that Sesai has fired them both, but they have new opportunities with other companies. Damien, however, declines to travel for work at the moment, encouraging Imani to take the job on his own. Damien meets with John Lyons, who once worked for the First Lady when Damien lived in the White House. Damien asks about Anne, concerned about her unusual interest in him. John explains that one of his friends founded Armitage Global, a financial services company that also operates as a private security force. He mentions that his friend's house mysteriously caught fire on Christmas Eve, prompting Damien to reveal that even the hospital he was born in burned down. John warns him to be cautious around Anne. Later, Damien stands outside Armitage Global, sketching the dagger Anne showed him. He is hoping to gather more information about it from a friend. Soon after, John meets with Anne at Armitage Global to discuss the recent attack on Damien. He accuses Anne of allowing the attacker to get too close to Damien, while Anne counters that John could have intervened when Damien visited him. John is uneasy with Anne's approach and worried about how close the attacker came to killing Damien. He insists on speeding up Damien's path to fulfill his destiny and bring about the apocalypse. Feeling threatened, John fires Anne and appoints Troy to lead the mission. Anne, frustrated, learns from her daughter that Damien is still waiting outside Armitage Global, and hatches a plan. She arranges for Troy to appear to be attacking her right where Damien can see. Damien rushes to help her, chasing Troy to a subway platform. During the chase, Damien saves a young boy from an oncoming train. Meanwhile, Troy stumbles on an escalator and his tie gets caught, ultimately leading to a fatal accident as he is pulled into the machinery. That night, Detective James is working late, piecing together the strange pattern of recent deaths. On his way out of the office, he is suddenly attacked by a dog. He manages to shoot the animal, narrowly escaping harm. At the same time, Damien is at his apartment, unsettled by the increasing number of deaths around him. As he lies down, Anne unexpectedly shows up at his door. Damien and Anne discuss the recent events involving Troy, and she hands him a photo he had taken himself, which stirs up disturbing memories of when he captured it. Anne subtly encourages him to consider that he might be the Antichrist, though Damien resists this idea as much as he can. Finally, fed up with her talks, He asks her to leave. Anne asks to freshen up first, and in the bathroom, she carves a 666 mark onto her thigh. When she returns, Damien confronts her about the mysterious woman he encountered in Damascus, whom he feels has been following him for a long time. Before Anne leaves, Damien shows her the birthmark on his scalp. Satisfied with his growing awareness, she departs from his place. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on the notification, and leave 1,000 likes or 100 comments if you'd like us to continue part 2. Thank you.